Hello, welcome back to another episode of Stigma-Free Learning Live with the Stigma-Free Society. Hello, it's been a while. I have not recorded a live event in a few weeks. If you notice, I have a different background now, which is the reason I have been away for a while. And that reason is that I moved across the country. A few weeks ago, moved from Toronto to Victoria, British Columbia, and I live here now. So sorry I've been gone, but it's great to be back right in time for the beginning of the new school year. So if you are an educator, I hope September is treating you well so far. I know that this can be a very busy time for educators and anyone working in the school. So if that's you, my heart goes out to you. I hope it's going pretty well. I hope that you're settling into your classrooms and that you are enjoying school and enjoying the fall and the start of the school year. So you will not be getting any Toronto heat warning updates from me anymore, as now I live in BC. So much more temperate climate. That being said, it is very warm in my apartment. So I am still sweating. Fun little sweat update for you all, as now you have become accustomed to those. So that's great. Love perspiration updates. Oh, goodness. Okay. We're really rolling with this one. So thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for joining me again. Wow. Very happy to be back. So hi, it's a stigma-free day. It's a stigma-free Monday. Stigma-Free Society, back at it again with another live event. Hello, if you're new, my name is Samara Liberman. I have been rambling for a while without introducing myself, and I'm deeply sorry for that. So my name is Samara. I am the host of this live event. I am also the programs manager at the Stigma-Free Society, and my gender pronouns are she and her. So I'm here and I'm ready to dive into another lesson plan. If you are new to the live event, this is a chance for me to showcase content that we have on the Student Mental Health Toolkit. So I am going to do something a little bit different today. Before we dive into the content of the lesson, I want to introduce you to the Student Mental Health Toolkit a little bit more. So I'm going to do a little bit of a walkthrough of that so you can see what it's like. If you haven't checked it out yet, I would highly recommend doing it. It's where the lesson plans I talk about on this live event are housed, and it has a bunch of incredible resources about mental health, mental illness, and stigma. We have a bunch of sections on there. It's also where we have our virtual stigma-free presentations program. So you can book a presentation right on the toolkit, which is very great. If you are looking for a presentation for someone to come into your classroom and talk about mental health and their personal experience, book a presentation through the toolkit. So before I do that, I'm going to give you a bit of context on the Stigma-Free Society, talk about myself a little bit if you're new here, and then we'll do a bit of a tour before I talk about the lesson today. So the Stigma-Free Society is over a decade-old Canadian registered charity, and we focus on eliminating and reducing stigma of all kinds, but particularly the stigma that exists around mental health and mental illness. So we have a lot of really great resources that are educational and preventative in nature. We're not a crisis hotline. We're not a crisis-based service. So if that's what you're looking for, I will show you the section where you can find those resources. We have one on this toolkit, so that's great. But that is not what we do. We are primarily in the business of education. So that is where the Student Mental Health Toolkit comes in. So before I do the tour, I'm going to introduce myself in a little bit more detail. So again, my name is Samara. I have a bachelor's degree in equity studies. I have a master's in teaching and a professional development certification in early years mental health. I've been a programs manager at the Stigma-Free Society for over a year, like a year and a half now, which is very exciting. And my job is to educate. My job is to spread awareness about mental health and, teach people on how we can reduce stigma. And we do a lot of that work in classrooms, which is where the toolkit comes in and which is where you come in if you are an educator, or if you're a parent, you can use our resource as well if you have a child with a mental health challenge, or even if you don't, but you just want to learn a bit more about it. It's an incredible resource. So I'm going to share my screen so you can see a little bit more about what the toolkit looks like. So this is it. This is the toolkit. So when you come to studentmentalhealthtoolkit.com, this is the page you come to. We have little shortcuts for teachers, school counselors, parents, guardians, and youth. And then we have our two sections, which are 4 to 7 and 8 to 12. We broke these down into two different age brackets so that we are making content that is age appropriate for students in these age groups. So I'm just going to dive into the youth side so you can just see what one of the sides looks like. But the content is slightly different on each side depending on the grade group. So we have a fun little welcome message, a little video here. The toolkit is free of charge. If you want to gain full access, we just ask that you register so that we can track who's using the toolkit and all that fun stuff. So again, it is free, but you can gain full access here. So not all of the resources are available if you don't have an account with us. We have information on the virtual Stigma-Free presentations program, as I mentioned. We have downloadable resources and lesson plans. So the lesson plans are kind of mostly what I focus on in this live event, and they are all BC curriculum aligned and cross-curricular. We have a section on coping with mental health. We have a section on diverse ability, disability, and inclusion. So all of the content in that area comes to you from different organizations that support people with these different, who are part of the diversely abled and disabled community. So that's really cool. We have our live events, of which this is one, but we also have other live events that you can check out. We have a student activity section. We have resources for parents, guardians, and caregivers. We have inspiring stories, which are like kind of short informational stories where people share their lived experience with mental health. They're really great and really inspiring. We have mental health for school staff. So if you are a member of a school, if you are a school staff, this is a great resource for you because it can help you to better take care of your own mental health so that you do not get burnout when you are supporting young people. We have our Stigma-Free Glossary, which is kind of my baby. It's a project I've been working on with various partnering organizations. So it has a bunch of terms and definitions around different identity categories, different communities, and all of the terms and definitions are provided to us by folks in those communities themselves. And it's a really great resource if you want to kind of learn a little bit more about a different community, if you want to educate the students about those communities. And we just uploaded a new section, which is the LGBTQIA2S+ section. So that's really cool if you want to check that out. That is brand new content to the toolkit. Then we have our help and community resources page. So in here you will find more crisis-based resources for you and for the students. And then we have our toolkit video library. So all of the resources, all the videos, that are housed on the toolkit can also be found here. So if you watched a video, you don't remember which section it was in, we have a lot of sections. It's also here. So you can just go right back to this one and check it out. So I'm just going to show you what the lesson plan and downloadable resources section looks like in a little bit more detail, because that is truly what we pull from most for this live event. So we've got downloadable resources on one side, lesson plans on the other. All of the lesson plans are broken down by content area. So health and physical education, language arts, different curriculum areas that are covered are all found here. And then if you see here, every lesson plan that is connected to that curriculum area, it's all here. You scroll and you find all of them. So would recommend checking out this section, as this is where I pull from. So if you're ever like, I want to follow along, but I don't know where to go, this is it. This is the place. So check it out. And then if you have a lesson plan that you want to see covered that I have not covered yet, it's probably on my list to cover. But if you have a specific request, please let me know, and I will do my best to do that one for the next episode. So leave a comment if that is something you would like to see. So that's it for my little tour. I hope you found that helpful. I hope you check out the toolkit. As I mentioned, very easy to find, studentmentalhealthtoolkit.com. The title of the toolkit is the website. So go check it out. Do some digging around. If you have any questions about it, shoot me an email, leave me a comment on one of these live events, and we can talk. So now that I have blabbed for a while, I'm going to blab some more, but this time I will blab about the lesson plan for today. So the lesson plan that we are going to be talking about today the long-awaited lesson plan. Sorry for the ramble at the beginning, but I hope you found that helpful. So we're going to be looking at changing mental health and changing seasons, which is a lesson plan for students in grade 4. So the curriculum areas covered in this lesson are visual arts and science. As always, I'm going to ask that you please leave a comment, leave a question, leave some interaction, like the video, chat with me. I'll be here responding to questions in the comment section. So, you know, I love your feedback. I love your engagement. Let's talk. Now into the body of the lesson. So to intro it, as I mentioned, this lesson, just to kind of get into the lesson, it's an extremely relevant one as we get closer to the fall and winter time. As it states in the lesson, changing seasons can greatly impact people's mental health. So when the seasons change, we go from, you know, really exciting summer, everything's hot, weather's great, kids are out of school, everyone's having a great time. Fall hits, things are cozier, but darker earlier, not great, getting a little bit harder to deal with emotional things. And then the winter comes and everything is dark, especially in Canada. We deal with rain or snow, and it becomes a lot more of a challenge to keep one's mental health afloat. So for some people, this change can be really, really challenging, so much so that they get depressed. So seasonal affectiveness disorder is what this is known as, when the change in weather really affects your mood. So seasonal affectiveness disorder, which is also known as SAD, very appropriately, is defined as a type of depression that's related to changing in seasons. SAD begins and ends at about the same time every year. If you're like most people with SAD, your symptoms start in the fall and continue into the winter months, zapping your energy and making you feel moody. So seasonal affective disorder is something that a lot of people experience. I myself experience it. And it's really hard when it's dark outside and you're not outside as much, or it's cold and it's damp and all of that stuff. It can make you feel a little bit more lethargic, a little bit less engaged, and wanting to participate in society. So it's a very real thing, and your students are going to learn more about it today. So through this lesson, your students will be creating a visual representation of what the change in the seasons look like, and they will be talking about how those changes can affect their mood. They will also brainstorm ways of supporting their mental health through the darker winter months as a way to combat potential mood shifts associated with the dark and the cold. So, as I mentioned, the curriculum areas in this lesson plan are science and visual arts. The science curriculum for grade 4 discusses interactions with the natural world, making predictions based on prior knowledge, and experiencing and interpreting their local environment, which are all very much connected to this lesson. And the visual arts curriculum obviously ties into the active part of this lesson, which is creating a visual art piece. So the video for the lesson today goes into what seasonal depression is a little bit more in a little bit more detail. Seasonal affective disorder, or seasonal depression, or seasonal mood change, can also be known as the winter blues, which is what the video describes it as. So this video is a really great way of kind of tackling seasonal depression in a more scientific way, but also in a way that is still age appropriate. So the follow-up questions, the guiding questions after the video include: what are some reasons people might feel sadder or more depressed in the winter months? Do you notice that your mood shifts in around the fall and winter? Have you observed feeling of happiness when spring returns? How do changes in mental health through the seasons reflect changes of mental health that happen regularly? So we want to make that connection between, we all experience fluctuations in our mental health, regardless of whether or not they're connected to the seasons. So I think it's a really cool correlation to talk about the way the seasons change and that kind of ebbing and flowing of, the seasons and the weather and all of that with the ebbs and flows of our mental health, right? They're kind of, it's like a nice metaphor, I guess, for how we experience mental health. So after you watch the video and have a discussion based on the guiding questions, discuss with your students how mental health is constantly changing, like I said. Explain to your students that changes in our mental health are very common. Our mental health can change throughout the day, throughout the week. It can ebb and flow throughout months and years. Changes in mental health can impact us in both positive and negative ways. Sometimes our mental health changes because of internal factors. So it can be hormonal changes or, chemical imbalances in our brain. Like there are a lot of internal reasons our mental health can be affected. but there are also obviously external reasons that our mental health can be affected. So changes can happen based on mood disorders, like I said, patterns of thinking, mental health issues, all the other things I already discussed. But also there are external factors, right? Like changes in school, stress around school, changing in our family dynamics, our friendships, loss of a loved one, and the changing of the season. So there's lots of both internal and external reasons why our mental health fluctuates and changes. And, all of that is really important to acknowledge. So next, have your students reflect on the way that the seasons impact their mood. So break your students up into groups and have them reflect on the way that their mood can shift when the seasons change. So this shift can be in both positive or negative ways. So, it's also good to look at the way that the seasons can affect our mood in positive ways. Like I know in the summer, personally, I'm like so happy all the time. I'm just like, I want to be outside. I want to soak up the sunshine. You're getting all that vitamin D from the sun. And that can really positively impact your mood. So the changing of the seasons and the changing of our mental health can be in a negative way with seasonal affectiveness disorder, or it can be really positive, like when spring comes and we're kind of getting out of those lower moods because the sun's out and the trees are blooming and all of that stuff. So it's good to look at it from both perspectives. So next, you're going to have your students kind of come back into the bigger group and facilitate a whole group discussion about this topic. So you can write things down on the board to anchor the conversation and ensure that you're tracking the discussion. Next, explore with your students why the trees change color throughout the year. So this is kind of the science piece that we want to bring in. There are scientific reasons why trees change color and lose their leaves in the fall and winter. These changes can sometimes mimic the changes in our mental health. As fall and winter approach, our mood can drop from being joyful and having all these sunny feelings that we've experienced through spring and summer, and can be replaced with feelings of sadness. Have your students make predictions about why they think the trees change color, and then they can test their predictions by doing some online research. So again, this is kind of the science piece of the lesson. You want to kind of dive into the reasons that the seasons affect the trees. I think it's like a really cool visual representation of the way that our moods change. So get them to kind of do that research, but make the prediction first. Like, I don't know, like they may think the sun is the reason that the leaves change and fall off, but get them to make some predictions and then test those theories through online research. So next, for the active part of the lesson, inform them that they will be creating a visual art piece that represents how the seasons change and how their mood and their mental health change throughout the year, just like the seasons. They can represent this in any creative way they choose. Depending on the time of year, you could get them to go outside into nature, gather materials, decorate trees, the trees that they design. So if they might want to do kind of like a fall, winter, spring, summer tree thing. And depending on the time of year, they can go outside, collect leaves, collect branches, all of that stuff, and use those as like natural elements in their art piece. I would recommend doing this in the fall so they do have some maybe beautiful fall leaves to work with if you would so choose, or they can do this in any way they want. It could be any kind of visual representation of the changing of the seasons. It doesn't have to be the trees. That's a really easy one. But if they want to do something else, like that's really cool, like a different landscape throughout the different seasons, whatever strikes their creative fancy. So once they are done their art projects, have them create a gallery in the class by posting their artwork up around the room and having students observe each other's art. This way they can explore each other's creations. So I don't like art to just kind of be something that they do and then they submit and then it's done. Like I really like it when everyone can interact with each other's art. So you'll notice in a lot of the visual arts lessons that I've created, there's some type of kind of creative component, like active component where they're walking around and looking at each other's artwork. So I would encourage you to do that, to set that up with your students so that they have the opportunity to see what each other has done and what each other's worked on, and they can ask each other questions like, what does this mean? What did you choose to represent in this way? And I just think it's a cool way to kind of extend the lesson and engage a little bit more with each other about the work that they've created. So finally, the lesson closure, you're going to have your students brainstorm ways that they can support their own mental health through the changing season. So split your class up into different groups. These could be the same ones as before, different ones, whatever you choose, and have them reflect on have them brainstorm ways that they can ensure that they maintain positive mental health throughout the seasons as the cold months come in. So it can be harder to find things to do in the winter to stay mentally well. Like I said, we're not really going outside as much unless you're super into winter sports and you're in a climate that is conducive to that. If it's raining a lot where you are, I'm expecting a very rainy winter here in Victoria. It can be harder to be outside and to find things to entertain ourselves. We're indoors more, we're maybe a little bit more bored, and that can lead to some challenging things in our brains. So as we approach those winter months, it's great to have a list of things that we can do to kind of keep our mental health going strong, even if we can't necessarily be outside in the same way we are in the summer. So use this as a time to prepare your students to maintain good mental health all year round. So that's it. That's the whole lesson. And there was also a walkthrough of the toolkit. I hope you found all of this very helpful. I hope you use this lesson. It's kind of the middle of September right now, but we are getting close to real fall weather. So it's gonna probably be more important than ever to have these discussions with your class. So I hope you use this lesson. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions about the Student Mental Health Toolkit, I hope they're in the chat. If they're not, you can leave them now. You can also shoot me an email at any point. My email is samara@stigmafreesociety.com. Really easy to get in contact with me. And I hope that you have a great start to your school year. Happy September. I love the fall. I love September. I feel like it's like a brand new start. I feel like it's more the new year than January. So if you're excited about the new school year and things kind of, being fall themed, I'm right there with you. I do love fall, even though I get seasonal affective disorder. I love it. I love feeling cozy. And I hope that this prompts you to embrace the cozy a little bit more. So that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I hope to see you in 2 weeks from now. I will be back in a regular schedule moving forward, I promise, and I will be covering another lesson, and I will talk to you then. Have a great rest.